All right, welcome to another draft through MTGSpeculation.com. It's been quite a while since I've recorded one of these. Origins was pretty boring. I wasn't playing a ton at the time, and the owner of the site wants me to get back into it. So here I am. This is actually my fourth pre-release draft. This is actually the ninth, so it came out today. I was pretty excited. I've only lost one match so far. I've been able to draft relatively good decks as far as I'm concerned. I think blue's the strongest color in the set. I think green and red are both very strong. I think black and white they sort of need to be built around a little bit more. You can actually run white as sort of a controlling color with some of the removal if you get like a planar outburst or something like that. But generally, I want to be in blue, green, or red in this format so far. Brood Butcher. This card's actually really good. It's double color, but there's not a single color card here that I like all that much. So I'm going to speculate. Generally, and it's early in the format, and that's why I'm doing this, I like to take the rare and see how well it performs to see if this is just a bomb first pick. The card looks really good. You have one card to sacrifice right away. It's obviously very good in green. So if this is the type of card that a month from now I still think is worth picking, I wouldn't know that if I didn't pick it now. So I'm going to go ahead and take that and see if I can sort of build around it. There's another good rare here. I've seen this in play. I know that a lot of people like this. And I think it's a very good card. I don't know that it has to be a super early pick. Obviously the draw card and then ingest, basically for no risk or no cost outside of mana, is good, but 5 mana is a ton. If this were a flyer, something like Baleful Strix, I think it would be significantly better. I'm not going to start looking towards a third color or something like that for it. I think Sky Spawner is great. Demon's Grasp is great. But if I end up in blue, maybe I'll just take the Fathom Feeder anyways. I take that back. I'm going to take the Fathom Feeder. Again, just so that I can see it played. I've played against this, and it wasn't particularly impressive. It's an annoying blocker. It does feel ingest. And I do really like the ingest decks. So that's something to be considered. This pack, Skitterskin I don't like. I really don't like the line of text can't block on any creature. Especially if 4 mana 4/3. It's just not very good. And you can only regenerate if you have another colorless creature. I mean, it's fine. I might turn around on this card and like it a little bit more. I don't like counter spells. Horribly Awry is extremely narrow. McKinney's Slide Runner is good. Actually, all 3 red cards in this pack are above average, I would say. Merc Strider is quite good. If I end up at blue-black, this is certainly the card I want from this pack. There's not a green or black card that's super good. Class Night Watch is fine. I'm going to take Merc Strider here. And for the hedge a little bit, obviously I would have liked to take a green or a black card there so that I'm more likely to be able to play into one of my rares. Here, man, this is actually a really good pack. Vile Aggregate is actually super good. It would be insane in this deck if these cards didn't all cost essentially different colors. Encircling Fissure is actually insanely good. When I was reviewing this set, I usually grade each set before it comes out. I was looking for the Awaken card that was going to be at instant speed. And this is the one I came to, and I was like, okay, this is essentially an asymmetrical fog where you get to throw a creature out there, which is pretty good at instant speed. But Benthic Infiltrator is great, Clutch is great. I already have a Merc Strider, which wants Ingest, so I'm going to lean towards Benthic right now, even though I think Clutch is overall a better card. I think just in terms of synergy, right now I have 2 cards that fuel the Ingest engine in Fathom Feeder and Benthic, both of which get through pretty consistently. So I'm happy to take a Merc Strider there because the payoff is huge when you do get to do it in this format. Especially because some decks, sometimes you can just sit on a Merc Strider forever when you're playing against a green deck that is spending a lot of its resources to try to power out a huge card. And most of the Eldrazi don't have enter the battlefield effects in this format, so bounce is really good against them. This pack, Incubator Drone, is very good. Scour is a little bit too expensive. Bloodlord's bad. Brood Hunter Worm and Belligerent Whiptail are very similar cards, and both good in their decks. Clastriad Healer is actually better than I thought. The black-white life gain deck actually looks really strong. Again, I don't really like counter spells, but I'll run with if I have to. So far, all of our cards are devoid, which is worth noting. At my local shop, I've actually had people tell me that this card is quote-unquote insane, which I still don't believe. Until I get beaten by it a few times, I'm not going to believe that. I can see spots where it's amazing, but I can just as easily see the spots where it's complete garbage. And they were saying that in Sealed, so in Draft, I think it's a little bit better than, well, significantly better than in Sealed. Anticipate is the card it's always been. It's pretty good in this format. This format's a little bit slower than Dragons, so it's a little bit better here. Miss Intruder I don't like at all. I might turn around that pick as well, but not a good black card either. Not a good green card. I'm going to Anticipate. It's kind of nice because so far we haven't had to make the decision on whether we're playing Brood Butcher or Fathom Feeder, just because there haven't been a whole lot of signal cards. March from the Tomb is really good in the ally deck, like really, really good. I played Ulamog's Reclaimer in Sealed, and I absolutely loved it when you could reliably enable, and I have 2 enablers so far. I think the payoff here is so much better than Mindraker, and right now my deck's looking more like a blue-black deck than a green-blue-black deck, like a Sultai deck, so I'm just going to take Reclaimer. And I'm holding up this draft a little bit, but it's just so that I can explain some of these picks. Mindraker, kind of nice to have one following up a Reclaimer here. I don't like the second Anticipate. I don't think there's much value there. 2 good green cards late. Baloth is very, very good actually at 5 mana. It's a good threat. Normally attacks as a 6/6. Giant Mantis blocks the majority of the flyers in the format, with the exception of at common and uncommon, anyways. With the exception of a couple. I'm gonna take Mindraker. I haven't drafted this deck yet. Sort of the blue-black ingest deck. Again, I don't really want to run a second Anticipate. This type of card, when I have multiple copies, the second or third basically never make my deck, just because this isn't like a super high power level format where I'm digging for like a combo card or something like that where Anticipate gains value. I'm going to take the Lifespring Druid just because it does give me the ability to possibly look at Sultai colored deck. Skyline Cascade is very, very good. I really like this. Coming to play tapped is a real cost, but sometimes, like if you're the more controlling deck, this can save you, 4 or 5 points of damage. Cloud Manta's fine. This is a card I think I'm going to be able to see later in the draft pretty easily. I already have 3/4 drops, so I'm going to take the Cascade, since I'm certainly in blue at this point. I really like Night Watch. Dispel is like, to me, essentially a bad negate. Offshoots, I'm not enough in green, and that's not a card I'm going to main deck in any case anyways. So I'll take Night Watch. Throw it in the sideboard for now. Stalwart, I actually really like. I'm surprised it's going this late. 2 of the decks I've drafted so far have been essentially 3-color decks, where I'm splashing for a 3rd color. But I'm going to take Myers Malice because I'm not sure that I'm in green. And taking a payoff card for being 3 colors rather than a card that lets you be 3 colors is a little bit risky. Class Rate Healer, actually it's kind of funny. I got 2 cards for the white-black life gain deck pretty late. That's a deck that I think is actually going to be really powerful in the format because as I've drafted so far, I've found that almost all of my decks have had 30 to 31 relatively good playables, which generally indicates that a high synergy deck is possible just because you're getting a high number of playables. And with black-white, you get cards like Stonehaven Mystic really late, Serene Steward being one of the premium cards for that deck. I certainly can't switch at this point, but it's a deck that I'm really excited to sort of find myself in the seat to draft. Blighted Woodland I really like, just as sort of a value card. It's really good to have sort of rampant growth effects at instant speed if you're like the red-green landfall deck, which I'm certainly not. Clutch of Currents, actually my Last draft I played, I ended up winning it. These are Swiss drafts, so the competition is not super steep. But I actually had 2 Clutch Occurrence in main deck and 2 in the sideboard, and I was actually had the chance to pick up a third in the draft, and I found I thought that 2 was going to be too many, and I ended up siding in, or 2 was going to be the right amount, and I ended up siding in the third in every single game, just because I would see the matchup and be like, well, actually, this card is insane here, and I think that's going to be the case throughout the format, where 3 Clutch Occurrence probably is the right number, if you can get there and you have a good enough curve. Silent Skimmer is a good card. It's another 4-drop. I'd much rather have a 3-drop here, but I mean, I'm not going to look more at green for like a fixing card. Like Natural Connection isn't as good as Lifespring Druid, where I want to be looking at that to sort of fix for green so that I can run Brood Butcher when I don't actually have that many Eldrazi Scion yet to sort of fuel this card. So I'm going to take the Skimmer. Okay. This is actually a really interesting pack, I think, for this format. Here's another Cloud Manta. Like I said, this is the type of card we can get anytime. Salvage Run I don't think is good. Grave Birthing I think is fine if you're in this deck. Every now and again you ambush a 2-1 with the Eldrazi. That's not really why you run this card, though. It's a 3-mana cantrip that enables your Mercstriders and your Mind Rakers and things like that. It's essentially a value card in the Eldrazi deck. But and there's another Silent Skimmer, which I like a lot. There's a Bone Splinters, which I also really like. More than most, probably, especially if I have like 2 or 3 Scion generators. But Ulamog's the Spoiler is the card that I'm looking at here. I actually found in my previous drafts that the 6-mana 6/6 Vigilance guy was an absolute bomb. I think that Ulamog's the Spoiler as a 6-mana 5/5. It doesn't have Vigilance like that creature does, but it's very, very good. If it's a 9/9, there's not very much that kills it in this format, outside of things like Grip of Desolation, Bone Splinters, the 7-mana Exile spell, the colorless one. But anyways, here we're at another pick where it's actually pretty close. Eldrazi Sky Spawner, I consider the best blue common, just above Clutch Occurrence. Grip of Desolation is, in my opinion, the best removal spell. Or not necessarily the best removal spell, but the best expensive removal spell in the format. I love this. Being able to exile a creature and a land fuels what my deck is trying to do. And it's a 2-for-1 fairly consistently. I think it's worth it just for that. So another clutch. This is where this blue-black deck gets interesting because I don't think that the blue tempo cards necessarily fit with blue-black. I think you want more of the ingest cards, and you want the Mercstriders rather than the Clutch Occurrence for the most part. And I found that Clutch Occurrence generally go fairly late, at least in these Swiss pools, or these Swiss drafts. So I'm going to take the Culling Drone for another early play. I might find that in like 2 weeks, Culling Drones are going really late, and Clutch Occurrence are going in the top 3 or 4 picks like they should be. Here, I think I'm going to look at a more realistic deck here, which is blue-black. Mist Intruder is nice if you're desperate for enablers. Right now we have 3 enablers. 4 enablers, which is fine for now. I love Kozilek's Channeler. I like having a little bit of extra mana to do things in early turns as well as late turns. So here, Coral Helm Guide has done a lot of work for me in this format. It's just super good. Like, the unblockable ability is so good in this format. The 6/6 Vigilance guy is a perfect example. I spent a couple turns in a row dumping 5 mana into my 6/6 Vigilance guy, hit him for 6. They can't block him, and they can't attack back through him either. There's just so little that blows us out in certain decks. But I don't think this is one of those decks. Obviously, with the spoilers, quite good. But I'm going to take him here because I really do want to get Ingest online and see what I can do with it. Vampiric Rites is an interesting card. Here, I don't think it really does anything. There's not much I want to sacrifice here, especially just to draw a card. It's an 18-land format, so drawing a card, sacrificing a creature and drawing a card is not that appealing. Drawing a card obviously is always appealing, but yeah, I've run 18 lands in basically every deck I've run in this format so far. I'm going to run Altar's Reap. I mean, I can use an instant speed for value against decks with a lot of removal. Baloth, like I said, is fine. I mean, some more of the life gain cards here. Two, actually, for that archetype here. I think, again, I'm just going to take the 5-drop version. Most likely not going to run it. Royal Mage's Trick. I'm sort of looking at sideboard cards at this point, so I'm just going to take a full return if I find myself in a super grindy matchup, which is very possible in this format. So 3 cards that could go in my deck. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. My deck's not really looking to do that yet. Grave Birthing. I like it. It's a reliable enabler for Mercstrider and Mindraker. And it sort of fills in a spot in my curve. None of these are good. Hedron Blade's very bad. In my experience, I'm pretty happy when it's played against me. I think I'll just cut the Awaken card, the green Awaken card. Put another Myers Malice in for now. So right now I'm a little bit heavy on 4-drops, and they're not super high impact ones either, outside of Mercstrider. They're sort of like board development ones, which is fine if I'm running Ulamog's Spoiler, but I probably need another win condition or 2 in this deck to be comfortable running this many 4-drops that don't really impact the board in a significant way in terms of aggression. Because my deck isn't like hyper defensive right now. You know, my traders want to be hitting for big payoffs, and right now I don't really have them. I have Reclaimer and Mercstrider and a Spoiler, which are all fine. Mercstrider being excellent. Prism Array is kind of a cool card. I love the Converge mechanic. I think it's really fun, just in general, but my deck's certainly not going in that direction. Breaker of Armies, I don't think is very good. And my deck doesn't want to be spending 8 mana on something like that. I like actually the 6 mana Eldrazi quite a bit. There's quite a few of them that I think are very strong. I think there's the one that actually tutors for a 7-drop Eldrazi I think is really good too, and would justify me taking Breaker of Armies, but I'm not going to do it here. Spawning Bet is really good though, and outside of this I don't have a great playable. I have Mystic Intruder and Myers Malice. I already have 2 Myers Malice, and there's no way I'm running both. I'm probably not going to even run the 1, considering how many better 4-drops I have. So I'm going to run Spawning Bet. I think that's fine. Even if I'm not ramping into anything, it's just something to do late in the game. Blight Herder. This... Oh, man. This is actually hard. So... Some people at this point are probably thinking that I'm crazy for looking at Windrider Patrol over Blight Herder. But from my experience, this card is like the 2nd or 3rd best uncommon in the set. Rolling Thunder being the best by a significant margin. But this card comes in at the same drop as Blight Herder. It doesn't have the condition that I need 2 cards in exile, and it arguably does more. It attacks for the same amount. I wouldn't be using the extra Eldrazi to do anything outside of essentially chump block. I have no way to pump them unless I get like a Swarm Surge later, but I don't want to have a 5-drop that requires me to have curved out with the correct creatures in order to enable it. I'd much rather have the 5-drop flyer that attacks for the same amount and improves my draw quality. So that's where I'm going to go. Hoping to wheel Mercstrider. Maybe Voracious Null. Not really, though. Dominator Drone would be fine. But yeah, I'm super pumped. I love this card. In my previous draft, this card did so much work. Wow. So, quick note about the pre-release events on Magic Online. They are a pretty big ripoff. I play a ton of Magic Online, and I love pre-release events. But you have to play Swiss for draft, so the payouts are pretty bad. So I'm more inclined to money draft cards that are worth more than like 3 tickets. So like a Sunken Hollow that'll be worth like 4 or 5 for the next month. I'm happy to draft, in addition to the fact that I need these for standard anyways, and it's on color, which is insane. I would love to have Benthic Infiltrator. Retreat to Hagra I don't really like, although I've heard it's decent. Catacomb Sister is great if it ended up in green-black, but Sunken Hollow is just fantastic, so I'm going to take that. I'm extremely happy about it too. Another Vampiric Rites. This is the card I just don't think is going to see a lot of play outside of green-black. Like, there was certainly room for me to be green-black here, but green wasn't super open, and the token cards for green weren't all that open. So here, there's just not much. There's no way I'm running 3 Myers Malice in any scenario. Vampiric Rites, I don't have enough to sack, and I already have Altar's Reap, tentatively included. Ugh. I guess I'm going to take Vampiric Rites. There's basically no way I run it, though. So Merc Strider's great. I'll just snap that up. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I'm sort of holding some people back. Pathway Arrows I think is pretty bad. I guess I take a second to anticipate. This card I think is fine here. It's an Ingest Fueler. It's a late game mana sink. I think it's generally pretty terrible. But as I said before, that there are a lot of playables in the format. I'm sort of experiencing the opposite case here, where I am actually a little bit hard up for playables. Misintruder, I might actually run over Altar's Reap because I don't really like that card. But I'm at 22 right now, and obviously I do have playable cards in my sideboard. Colostria Nightwatch is a perfectly playable card. I mean, it's a 5-mana 4/5. For those of you who remember cons, Glacial Stalker was a perfectly serviceable card. A 4/5 actually does a lot on most boards in this format. But in terms of the cards that I actually want to run, it's not quite there. So Merc Strider, I talked before, I passed a Clutch of Currents earlier for Calling Drone. And if I want to cut like an Anticipate, for example, I think from this deck, because like I said, I don't like redundancy for this effect if I'm not looking for combos. This was the card that I was looking for in lieu of Clutch of Currents because, Calling Drone helps me enable it. So I'm going to run it because I like it costing a mana less, essentially 2 mana less if you're going to start trying to attack, relatively soon. I guess, it's still only 1 less at that point. Because if you tap 5 for Clutch of Currents, your land can attack, but it also can't block. So it sort of comes into... So Merc Strider that comes into play tapped does essentially the same thing. So I'm really happy to see three Merc Striders, a Mindraker, at my 4-drop slot, following with my Benthic Infiltrators and my Grave Birthing. I have basically 4 cheaper drops that also enable Ingest. I think this deck's going to very reliably be able to abuse the Ingest mechanic. The one problem that I see is I'm light on spells. So Ulamog's Reclaimer isn't bringing back a whole lot that's spectacular. Generally in black, you end up with some better removal spells. But that's just not the case here. I'm going to take Catacomb Sifter because, I don't know, it's a cool card. I really like this type of card. It's sort of, an efficient value creature in Limited I just really like. I guess I take like the 4th Myers Malice. Sludge Crawler, I might not run the first one even. The only reason I'm even considering Sludge Crawler is that I've seen people start to say that the card's slightly better than it looks. And it looks terrible. So even slightly better is just borderline playable. So I'm going to look at what could possibly replace it. This is 22 cards right here. And like I said, I think this is an 18-land format. And especially when I have one of the colorless lands. So if I start to look at this, I mean, the cards I'm certainly not bringing in are Myers Malice. The 3 Dutiful Returns aren't coming in. If I look at the cheaper creatures, basically just the cheaper plays, these are both, sort of sacrifice-themed cards, which aren't good with what I'm doing right now. Altar's Reap, I think, will get in a couple matchups out of the sideboard. Colostria Healer certainly isn't. I'm not an ally deck. 2 Sludge Crawlers is ambitious. I think 1 might be ambitious enough. Do I have enough cards that can sort of finish the game? It's possible that I don't. Windrider Patrol can finish a game, and so can Despoiler, which makes Colostria Nightwatch a little bit more appealing as sort of a finisher. But I think with basically 4 tempo cards in Merc Strider and Clutch of Currents and really reliable enabling, I should be able to get by with this. Silent Skimmer can actually close out a game where I was able to be aggressive early. 3 dutiful returns, and 2 Myers Malice certainly aren't coming in. Like I talked about, I don't really like Anticipate, so this is probably my deck. Good sideboard options though. What's this put me on? 10-7. I like 9-8. Or no, this gives me 10-8 here. I like 10-8 a lot better. Because I really want to be able to play this on turn 2, as well as the Sludge Crawler. But anyways, I'll see you guys in round 1.